Ross just sang about it. He knows what God is to him when he sings about it. I know all this when I pray. He named that. So traditional prayer from most religions has people asking God, a being up there for some favor. It's a beseeching, we call it. A beseeching or a begging, or just asking, oh God, do this thing. Since we don't believe in God as a person, the whole idea of praying in this philosophy is different. It's not asking God to do anything. If the highest God and the innermost God is already one God, then my job is to align with that highest God and recognize that it's in here. So we call it affirmative prayer. Affirmative. We affirm something. Now, for anybody who might come from sort of an agnostic or atheist background, this is probably good news to you, because if you come from a thing of, I'm not going to pray to some being out there, that just seems funny, this gives the agnostic or the atheist even a way to lean on something, and it's called our own mind. But remember, our own mind is not even our own mind. You know, if the highest God and the innermost God is one God, what is my mind? It's the mind of God that I'm using. So words can get so funny sometimes. Words can trip us up. But an atheist who doesn't believe in anything bigger than themselves can at least say, well, I can use my own mind and I can say these things are true. So you might like that if that describes you. The concepts that I just said, God is all there is in shorts, really explains it all. It explains it all. God is all there is. Everything is already available in spirit. Everything is already provided. And then I must choose. That tells you right there that there's nothing being withheld from me, but I'm the one who has to open up to it. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. Briefly, I'm going to do this more after service too. I'm going to spend a half an hour talking a little bit more about this. But briefly, we use a 5-step method. And if you haven't taken a class in a long, long time, or if you're out there on Facebook Live, you go, what is she talking about 5 steps? They're very logical. We recognize that there's one power first. We call that recognition. Recognizing that one power. We recognize that the innermost God is right here. We unify or align ourselves with that truth. We speak our word. We don't ask, we say it as if it's already true. We give thanks for that new truth, and then we let go and we let God. And we will go much more into detail in that little half an hour after service. Ernest Holmes, back in his day, when him and a lot of his colleagues were writing about these more metaphysical, pantheistic concepts, were using this for medical healing in a lot of ways. And so he named affirmative prayer treatment, because people came to many practitioners for medical healing, for medical treatment. So you hear the word treatment. They actually were meaning it that way back then. Now, affirmative prayer, I think, really speaks to it better. So we call it affirmative prayer. He reminded us that we're not doing anything to change God's mind. How could an already infinite, everything possible realm need to be changed at all? And so he said this quote that helps us understand. Treatment is for the purpose of inducing an interior awareness. This is a huge shift. We're not trying to convince God to do something for us. What we're saying is that everything is already available. So what has to happen is my interior awareness has to consciously understand and grab onto and accept and allow this prayerful thing I'm saying to be my truth. We are inducing an interior awareness in our mind. And that there's nothing that we could say that would do anything to this thing called God, or that universal mind, or that universal presence. It's doing it to our awareness so that we can accept it. Now, you've probably heard me or other practitioners say, the law always says yes. Huh? The law always says yes. So, the law is simply a spiritual understanding of how creation works. Here's how Ernest Holmes, our founder, said it all the time. He said, or he used the example of a seed in the soil and a plant. He used an example. So imagine now you've got a bed of dirt in front of you, and it's the soil, and it's beautiful, and it's ready to go, and it's, fertile, great soil. It's just sitting there waiting for something. The soil is analogous to law. The soil is going to take what you planted and grow it, providing you water it and give it the right amount of sun. Ernest Holmes, in his sense of humor, he would say, now you can't plant a carrot seed and expect to get a tomato. It's not going to work that way, because the law always says yes. The soil always says yes. If you plant a carrot, it's going to grow a carrot. If you want tomatoes, plant tomatoes. The law always says yes. The soil can't go, I don't want you to plant carrots right here. I think you should plant tomatoes here instead. Oh, I did not know you shouldn't put roses. The soil isn't going to do that. It's just going to take what you give it and say yes. My favorite one is electricity. Electricity doesn't care what we do with it, right? I can plug in a lamp, I can plug in a toaster, I can plug in an air fryer, I can plug in an electric keyboard, I can plug in anything. The electric socket doesn't go, oh, no, don't put your toaster here. It just says, yeah. So the electricity is a responsive, there's a law of electricity, there's a law of soil, and there's a law of mind. And sometimes the word law is hard because we think rules. I'm not talking about rules, we're talking about a responsive, creative medium. And so we're saying that this unlimited source responds back to me. So if I say I'm miserable, the law says, yeah, you're miserable. It gives back. But here's the wonderful thing about spiritual law. It is not limited. It is not limited. It is infinite and unlimited. We humans tend to only think of so many options or so many possibilities. We don't see what else is possible. And so we limit our thinking. We can pray for something and have it show up in ways that are bigger than we thought. And it's not because there's some God going, well, I think you deserve more, so I'm going to give you more than that. It's because it can work in an unlimited way. So you can pray for a relationship. Sometimes that relationship then comes in ways you don't even expect it. It comes in maybe different ways, but I was only thinking of it like this, but the universal mind brought it to me like this. We think in possibilities of what could happen, and we only think this, or this. The spiritual law goes, no, man, all kinds of good things can happen. So sometimes it shows up better than our wildest imagination if we allow for a little bit of the mystery. Ernest Holmes and his contemporaries said it like this. It's going to come back to you as exactly how you speak it. I haven't found that to be my experience. It's not always exact because of what I just said. I'm a little bit limited. So sometimes I say, okay, I'm going to speak my word for financial abundance or for a healthy relationship or whatever it is. And then I got to get out of my own way. I got to get out of my own way and say, this can show up in ways that are better than I think, which is a little bit of the mystery. Rather than, I don't know about you guys, anybody else ever just get so limited in their thinking that all they can see is this possibility? I'm not the only one, right? Please tell me I'm not the only one. So it can be better than what we thought. Sometimes it can be less than what we thought. And here's why. Let's go to the next one. This is my favorite quote. You've probably heard me say it 1,000 times. Hence it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does. Only it does according to our belief that it will not. This is like one little place in the whole textbook. It's like, wow, that is so profound. Are you following this? So according to the law, if I plant, it won't work. It's going to grow, it won't work. And it's going to work, it's going to be that way. So sometimes we limit ourselves because we don't believe it's going to work. We humans, we kind of get in the way because we think we've got life figured out. But this is what we're talking about. The principle is another word for saying the spiritual law, the spiritual principle. We can start thinking so small, we can start thinking so fearful, we can start thinking that it's not going to work, and we forget to lean on the very thing that we say we trust. God, by whatever name you want to call it. We forget. I forget, we all forget, which is why we do this over and over and over. We end up talking ourselves out of believing that wholeness is really true. We talk ourselves out of it. You know why we do that? Here's my theory. We look around at the world and we go, well, that ain't ever going to happen. We look at the world of form and we think this is what the model is. This is the model, the world of form, where people fight each other, people hate each other, and that. We look at the world of form and we get stuck and we think that's the model. We forget. And in that we talk ourselves out of believing in something greater. If you ever hear yourself say, that ain't ever going to happen. Of course, I'm using the bad grammar on purpose. That ain't ever going to happen. You just got in your own way. And that quote that we just had up there is exactly what's going to show up. Catch yourself. Ooh, did I just say that's not ever going to happen? Ooh, did I just get so bogged down in fear that I forgot that there's a power greater than I am? Yeah, it happens. I tell people all the time that I do this, what I do, for myself. My predecessor, Reverend Shawn, said to me once when I was still in school, we had an assignment. We were supposed to interview different ministers of different denominations, and of course I chose her because she was my mentor. And I said, the question was something along the line of, what's the biggest lesson, here in being a minister and doing this job? And she said, this job, this work holds our feet to the fire. Holds our feet to the fire. We can't get lazy. I can't get lazy. You can. I can't get lazy. Any of us standing here doing this work can't get lazy. We have to do our own work day in and day out and day in and day out. So when I say every talk, every message is for me, on some level it's very, very true. I'm reminding myself of the same thing I'm reminding you. And I say all the time, it's not a one and done. We're not just going to get to some level of enlightenment and that's it. There's always another layer. It holds our feet to the fire. When I get afraid and I get mad and I cry, I allow all that to happen. I allow myself to be afraid and I allow myself to cry and I allow myself to hit the pillow. I was punching some pillows last night, as a matter of fact. There's something going on in my own life right now that I don't care for. And I allow it. I punch the pillow, I cry, I tell somebody I'm feeling really afraid, can you pray for me now? And I do that so I don't talk myself out of believing in my wholeness. Because some deep level in there says, Shawn, you are whole and perfect and complete because that's the way the divine source made you. And then something happens in the world of form and I forget. You too, right? We forget. Which is why we have prayer partners, licensed practitioners, other people who, when we forget, we were talking ourselves out of wholeness, we call that person up and say, can you pray for me? Can you know this truth for me? It makes me really emotional because I do it all the time. I ask other people to know for me the grandness of what we call God or the spiritual life. I ask other people to know it for me. And when you get like that, when you get so afraid and you get so, oh my gosh, I don't see how this is going to work itself out. You get so tunnel vision, ask somebody else to know that greater truth for you. Ask a practitioner. That's all these beautiful people that are either in the room or hanging around here somewhere that have become licensed practitioners. This is what they do. This is what they're trained for. To know a greater truth for you. When you forget, to engage this thing called affirmative prayer and to talk us back into believing in something greater. And even when we're not feeling it at the moment, they are. Oh my gosh, what a beautiful gift to say, I'm not feeling very whole right now, but somebody else is knowing it for me. Gorgeous. Beautiful. Put me on any prayer chain you want. You pray in every language and denomination you want. But when we're doing it for ourselves, we're coming back to the affirmative. So, last point. Words matter. Words matter. And sometimes I have people in my life who think I'm nitpicking with my words, and I'm not nitpicking. What I understand is that my words have energy behind them. My words carry some sort of energy of belief, and it's that energy of belief that is then creating my experience. My word is the seed. If I want a carrot, let me plant a carrot. If I want love, let me plant love. If I want health, let me plant health. If I want wholeness, let me plant wholeness, etc., etc., etc. The words matter. So even when I say, I'm acknowledging that I'm feeling afraid, I'm not going to plant a seed. What that is I'm acknowledging that I'm not feeling that great right now, and I'm going to go right back into saying, and I'm going to plant trust, and I'm going to plant peace, and I'm going to plant goodness, all right? So the fearful word might just be an acknowledgement, but that's not the word that I'm using in my prayer. We don't say, God, take away this fear. You will never hear our practitioners talk about it like that at all. They don't say take away the spirit. They say what I know is a deep inner peace that passes understanding. They always go towards the other side of it. They're not going to say, oh, I help this person get past this medical issue. They're going to go, I know that this person is already whole and complete and is revealed as health. We speak it affirmatively because those words matter. They carry the belief. And we come full circle then around to the word choice. Because the words that I'm choosing to use, see, I can choose it. And that is where our power is. I know it, I know it, and with every passion in my body, that's where our empowerment is. In the ability to choose something better. To choose something life-affirming, life-enriching, not fearful. So on the one hand, I will always tell you, there's times when we just don't get there for ourselves. There's times when we do feel afraid or whatever those things are. And then that's when we ask. But we always, always affirm. I didn't finish that other sentence. We ask for help. We ask for assistance. And then we always imagine planting the seed, health, wholeness, love, peace, trust. We plant those little seeds. And the most important thing, Ernest Holmes said over and over and over again, we do our prayer as if it is already done. Because there is only now. There's only right now. We do it as if it's already done because in the infinite realm of spirit, it is. So let's stop talking ourselves out of believing in our wholeness. Let's talk ourselves back into believing in our wholeness. Let's allow room for mystery, which means it could be bigger and better than we ever imagined. And let's dare to believe that this thing called prayer really works. So let's practice right now. Let's close our eyes. Every single prayer we do here begins with, God is all there is. There is one power and one presence. It is the highest God that I can imagine. It is the greatest love that I can imagine. It is the most wonderful peace that I can fathom. It is anything I can name and more than that. It is omnipresent. There's no spot where God is not, or where this one source isn't. This highest God and this innermost God is one God. That means right here in my own being, my heart, my mind, this God lives. This source lives. Not separate from me ever. And whatever I know is true for me is true for all of us, because there's really only oneness. And so I spend time remembering one source right here, present always. And then I move on and I speak my word. I speak my word for that which I want to experience in my life. And I speak it as if it's already done. And I do so now for myself and I do for all of us. So I'm knowing, I'm claiming that whatever your highest and best good is, that whatever you are speaking for yourself, that the spiritual law is saying yes. I claim that we all plant seeds of greatness today. We plant seeds of health and wholeness and love and peace and goodness. And as we plant these seeds, they grow. They grow. And so I'm speaking this word that today our affirmative prayer, it just expanded exponentially in our ability to use it. And so knowing that this higher power is working through every prayer right now, I just say thank you. I'm grateful for it. And once I'm grateful, I can release it. And I release it by patting the soil back down over that little seed and leaving it alone. I let go and I let God. Join me in saying, and so it is.